This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, gang? Let's do this. So welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Jets' final road game of the season tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes before they get back on a plane to Winnipeg for the final time this season for 4 remaining home games before the end of the regular season, and 16 other NHL squads begin the quest to compete for the Stanley Cup. But we're going to have a great show today. We will absolutely talk Jets. And of note this morning, we did hear from Captain Blake Wheeler, who spoke, for quite a while. We've got some clips coming up. Remis and I will talk about that right away. And we'll also look forward to having Brandon Rewucki on the program a little bit later on in the 2 o'clock hour with his thoughts on the Jets going down this final stretch, as well as some of the other big stories around the National Hockey League, including the remaining playoff race that still exists, of course, in the Western Conference. But listen, we got the ice playoffs beginning on the weekend, and a couple weeks after that, the Manitoba Moose have booked their ticket to the Calder Cup playoffs. And it's been a while, but I'm looking forward to welcoming in the Gus Bus himself, David Gustafsson, with the Manitoba Moose on the program. He will join us as well. And our first guest today, some great news for Goldeyes fans, baseball fans, people that just love going to the ballpark in the summer. Andrew Collier, the general manager of the Winnipeg Goldeyes, on a pretty groundbreaking deal that they announced today involving all local beers at the ballpark, as well as a bunch of other exciting things coming up for the season. So Andrew Collier join us in about 20 minutes or so. David Gustafsson, more Jets talk with Brandon Rewucki, and much more over the course of these next 3 hours. Great to have you with us. If you're with us on YouTube, do us a favor, make sure that you hit that red subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. And for all of you folks listening on a podcast, thanks so much for making us a part of your day. If you do ever have the opportunity to get on Apple or Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and a little review. Always helps us spread the channel as well. And no one helps us out more than the great folks that support this program. A big shout out to our sponsors, including Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health Fresh Market, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course our betting partner over at Coolbet Canada. All right, so Collier, Gus Bus, Rewucki, going to be a packed show, but let's get this thing going with Michael Remis. Remo, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm looking ahead to tonight's slate of NHL games. A lot of stuff happening last night, but I do believe it is official now, according to Micah Blake McCurdy on Twitter, who's done the calculation that the Jets have been eliminated only because Dallas and Vegas do play each other in one of their games. So disappointing end to the season, but we've kind of been, watching the percentages dwindle.
This isn't
over
news.
The last couple weeks. It's not news, but we can put the official nail. I should get my hammer. I think it's behind me. I should get the nail in the coffin. It was like pretty much like needed one more stroke there to just bash it in there. But
just a couple more shovels of dirt, and that happened last night without the Jets actually playing. But we knew. Even over the last couple of days, not that we were seriously talking about it, but it was funny to see the team had a 0% chance, and yet still was technically not eliminated. Seems like that's happened last night. And of course, 5 more games for the season, 1 more on the road tonight. Listen, I want to get to Blake Wheeler in a minute. We'll certainly talk about it with Brandon Rewucki when he comes on a little bit later on. But let's talk about what Coach Dave Lowry had to say first and foremost, Remis. Logan Stanley's out tonight. Dylan Sandberg's in. But it was interesting that with the finality around the club, Dave Lowry's basically said that these are the guys that he's going for through the rest of the season. So for many of you, and I know we talked about this with Murat, who, felt that this was an opportunity for some younger players to get their feet wet, get a little bit of experience, whether it be a reward, whether it be preparation going forward. At least from the lips of the coach today, it doesn't sound like that's happening anytime soon, including these final 4 games on a home ice. And I'm sure that'll beg some questions as to what are they hoping to get out of these final 5 games. But at the same time, I think most of us are already into 2022, 2023 mode and discussing the off season and the upcoming season. Although there certainly is an argument to be made that, maybe some younger players that haven't been in the lineup could benefit from a taste of the National Hockey League in these final 5 games. But as far as Dave Lowry had to say, and it is interesting, I'm not really too sure what the thought process is behind it, but it doesn't look like that's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, they're putting in Sandberg tonight and ahead of Stanley. It just seems like Stanley's, whenever there's a goal against, you're kind of looking at him often when he's been on lately. It's been a tough stretch here. Sandberg's
had a rough
well.
season. There's no doubt about it. I thought that he played really well last year. It was one of the first hot takes on this show that actually got some traction last year, early on in the birth of Winnipeg Sports Talk, talking about Logan Stanley. And, I'd said, listen, with the way things are going right now, I think that he's going to get protected in the expansion draft. And he did. But it's pretty hard not to look at the season that he's had and think that there has been, well, never mind a real lack of progress, but in some cases a bit of a step back. He's been given plenty of opportunity. There's no doubt about it. And when you look at the younger players, there's 2 guys that were given opportunities that maybe many others weren't. Logan Stanley was one of them. Christian Vesalainen was the other. Christian Vesalainen's in with the Manitoba Moose right now, and Logan Stanley's in the press box. Certainly this entire season isn't about those 2 players. But I'm sure there are some other younger players in the organization somewhat envious of the run that those players got. And it doesn't look like anything's changing over the course of the next 5.
Yeah, so the 4 line, same as last game. Sanford up on the second line with Dubois and Wheeler, Connor, Stastny, Ehlers, line 1. Morgan Barron playing with Lowry and Appleton. Harkins, Tony Natos, Svechnikov. And then you mentioned Morrissey, DeMello, Schmidt, Pionk, Sandberg, Dell. Now, they didn't do actual line rushes. I just kind of what they did last game, and I just put Sandberg in. Goalies, Connor Hellebuck had the non-COVID illness. He skated this morning, but he won't be playing. Eric Comrie, he's getting the start again. 2 games in a row for Coms. Us and Mikhail Burden, he's going to be backing up Scott Billick, tweeting that one out. So there we go. Lineup tonight against Carolina Hurricanes, first place. This is a tough stretch of games here for the Jets here. Colorado, just played the Rangers, Carolina, Calgary's coming up. This is a tough stretch of teams here for the Jets, who just got officially eliminated from the playoffs.
Yeah, listen, we've been looking at this road trip for a long time, knowing the position the Jets were in. And this is dating back to a couple months ago where, you're going to need to bring yourself up to a level where you were in it and then go up against an absolute meat grinder of a road trip against some of the top teams. Now, obviously it didn't end up mattering much because the team was essentially out of it when they got on the plane. But you do wonder. Heck, the bottom line is, putting your season in the hands of being able to go on the road and beat teams like this probably wasn't, the way they drew it up to begin with either way. All that being said, I love Carolina. I love the way they play. I love the job Rob Brindamore's done. I think they're one of the most complete, deepest teams in the league right now. I think they're definitely going to be a contender in a very stacked East when the playoffs get going. So we will get a chance to see them tonight. And I'll tell you what, Remis, maybe one of the most eye-opening games of the entire season was when the Carolina Hurricanes came to Winnipeg earlier this year and absolutely dominated the Winnipeg Jets. That was the game I remember talking to you on this program afterwards about, the Jets having almost no possession in the offensive zone outside of about 3 feet from the boards. The Canes dominated the neutral zone. They dominated the forecheck, and the Jets got absolutely nothing going. And now that's been a big part of their success so far this season. So we get another chance to see what one of the good teams in the league are doing and how they're doing it tonight against the Winnipeg Jets before the team gets back here for 4 more at home.
Yeah, you mentioned the Jets against Carolina. I mean, you look at the season, the Jets against any of these top teams, Colorado, Calgary, Minnesota, Toronto, Florida. It's been a parade of goals in the back of the Jets' net. They played Florida twice, allowed 5 and 6 goals. The Avs put up 6 and 7. Minnesota's put up 6 and 7. The Leafs put up 7. So when they've played the elite of the elite teams, Colorado scored 5, 6, and 7 goals against the Jets. So it's been, the Jets. There was a 4-2 loss to Carolina back in December, but I think you said the score maybe seemed much further apart than that. And when the Jets have played these elite teams, it hasn't gone very well. They did play well against Colorado, a couple weeks ago at home, but they needed to do that in the other games as well. And so I'm curious how it's going to be tonight with the Jets out of the playoffs, and see how I think they're playing. Wheeler spoke about how they need to approach the last 5 games in his candid comments. The first time we've heard from him in a bit.
Yeah, well, let's get to that. As we spoke yesterday, we hadn't heard a lot from Blake over the course of the last month or so. There had been a couple of occasions. To be honest, the memorable ones were talking with Jeff Hamilton in Arizona, as well as some of the comments when the things were going well right out of I believe the All-Star break. And listen, I kind of mentioned this yesterday when we were talking with Murat and speaking about the the part of the story that Josh Morrissey told about the way Blake was there for him after that final game last season. And I think it really put a human side of it. But there's been a human side of the Winnipeg Jets in their post-game comments over the last 3 games or so. And I know we were speaking off air before the show, Reem. The media availabilities right now, to be honest, I think are more telling than what the games are. I don't know how much we're going to get out of these games the rest of the way. But certainly, as we'll hear from the captain, the way this team plays in front of the home fans for the final 4 games of the season, I think will matter. But it's also mattered the way these players are sort of owning the disappointment of this season. But no one more than the guy that wears the C on the chest. And, we hadn't heard from Blake for a little while, and he did meet the media today before the game. We've got some interesting clips from Blake. Let's start off with he just spoke to the disappointment of missing the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I think we said it before the year, be careful of what that word expectations mean, there have been years in the past where the expectations were really low and we had really good teams and, we're competing for championships, and, this year seemed like expectations were high, and, we've obviously fallen well short of those. So it's the best part of the year to be a hockey player, except for if you're in our shoes, and it's the worst. So it's really disappointing. It's hard to put in words the feeling, what it feels like, but it just feels like we're kind of back to square one. Built so long to get to a championship level, and then sitting here is pretty deflating.
And what are some of the keys to kind of getting back to that winning culture, and where winning becomes a little bit more of a regular occurrence for you guys?
You know what? It's probably nothing I care to share publicly. I think the off season will, be critical to having some conversations and traveling down that road. But for now, I think it's just a matter of, finishing the year with the right way and playing hard, and obviously we're gonna have 4 home games in front of our fans, so showing them that we're still in the fight and we're still playing hard for them, and so we can end with some self-respect.
All right, interesting line there at the end. Ending with some self-respect. I think it just speaks to the despair. I think, and this is not anything new. We've been discussing it for a long time, but especially this final week. Coming out of this road trip with what we heard from some of the other members of the Winnipeg Jets. Wheeler was also asked by the media about his thoughts on, where they've fallen to, but can they get back next season?
That you guys can quickly get back to where you want to be, that this doesn't have to be a long, painful process, that, as early as next season, you can kind of climb that mountain again.
Well, I think that's the idea, is to regain the form that we had that made us, a contender. And I don't think it's a matter of snapping your fingers, but, I think in large part we have a group of really good hockey players. It's just how do you make that how do you fit that into a good team, and that's our challenge.
Go next to Scott Bellick from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Good morning, Blake. What's missing, Blake, then? You do, like you said there, you do have the talent, I suppose, and all of that, but it is not fitting together. What is it going to take, and what's missing, or what's your view on that?
Like I said before, I think my feelings are potentially a little bit raw right now and maybe not that well thought out. So, just going in a public forum and exposing that to the world, I don't think is necessarily fair right now. I think it's something that's going to take some thought, and some deliberation and coming up with the answer, because like I said, my view may not be even correct. It may not fit to what the organization thinks or what the team thinks. So certainly there's obviously steps that need to be taken and some things that we can improve on. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting where we are.
All right, so there's a little bit more from Blake Wheeler today in Carolina before tonight's road finale for the Winnipeg Jets. And, Reem, interesting to hear him. And listen, I have to, listen, you want to hear honest comments, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said for the captain. Maybe not, diving into the full plan for rebuilding the hockey club before a game here. I mean, I'm sure he'll have more to say, come the final garbage bag day, whatever you want to call it, after the final game of the season. Certainly will. And I'm sure he'll be prepared for that. And I'm sure he's already thinking about that. That being said, this was a more measured Blake Wheeler than I think we've seen in front of the media in a number of in a while. Partly because of some of the situations where he has been out in front of the media in the past of this season.
Yeah, I mean, with the team officially being eliminated from the playoffs, appropriate for him to come out. I don't think he's going to say, I agree with him. But it's pretty new. I mean, we have plenty of time here over the next couple of weeks to dissect the season and figure out about the team moving forward. He seems to be optimistic with some of the players that they have, but for whatever reason this year hasn't worked out. So, I mean, it wasn't too in depth, but I did enjoy being asked about the culture, because we saw earlier this week Kyle Connor and who was it? Pierre-Luc Dubois, talk about the team culture, and especially Connor was like never too early to start building culture for next season, and that was kind of interesting, and that's part of why these player conferences are almost more entertaining than the games.
Well, they certainly are interesting. I mean, and they've been more interesting over the past week and a half than I think at any point this season. I mean, I think, and it's something that we've talked about before, I don't know whether we got very often this season. And listen, I know it's monotonous and it's tedious and it's probably a pain in the ass for these guys to answer questions, especially after tough losses over the course of this year. But at least we're getting some more honesty, because at times before, I mean, we made a ton of jokes on this program about some of the things that were rolled out as reasons why the team wasn't doing as well as they probably should have been doing. And I think we've now seen that at least the team within that room has come to the realization that maybe it wasn't a lot of those other things outside of the room, but what was happening within it.
I will say, speaking of that, I do appreciate the honesty. I think that's all you want. I mean, hearing them talk about
for sure
playoffs the last couple of weeks when it was clear wasn't going to happen, when they could really string together a couple straight wins. But I will say, I mean, having to go out and imagine you just had the worst day at work ever. I'm sure people come home they don't even want to talk to their wife or their partner. When you get home, you just want to sit there and do nothing. Imagine you just had a horrible day. You've had a horrible year at work. fallen short of all expectations. Then you're going to answer questions from I don't know. I'll never know what that's like.
How would you do if Billick and McIntyre were lining up to asking you about all the times that you screwed up the mute button in an episode of Winnipeg Sports Talk?
I would lose. I would lose it. Yeah. If I had to answer questions on that every time, yeah, I would probably hate them too. It would be terrible. I always think it reminds me of my brief stint as an accountant, Huss, and I had to go and ask like the general managers of companies, be like, so tell me about this line item on your financial statement. What went into that? And they just like wouldn't want to talk to you. That's the that reminds me of these reporters asking about like the worst. Someone said like, is this the worst season of Jets 2.0? And I mean, relative to expectations, I think it would have to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, either this or 18-19. In 18-19, it was a playoff team. It was out in the first round, but I could make an argument that one was as disappointing, but the bottom line is it's not a good company to be in because we remember how that season ended. But let's get to these comments on the culture because I think this is probably the most important thing that came out of today. And it's quite clear. I mean, Blake Wheeler is the guy that, has the C on his jersey, and we've heard a lot about the culture and, at times this year about leadership. And he certainly didn't shirk responsibility for that. He was asked about the culture of this team going forward and what he's heard so far this year from recently from some of his teammates. Here's the captain.
So, we've heard Kyle Connor out here, Nikolai Ehlers, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, Kyle Connor questioned maybe motivation at times and talked about the need for a culture change. When you hear that type of thing, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think I would have to take responsibility for that. It's been my job to build the culture here, and I've taken a lot of pride in that over the years. And so I certainly look in the mirror on that one and kind of where we've gotten to, and the team that we were, and the team that we are now. And I don't hide from that at all. I certainly take the responsibility for where this team sits, and I think I'm hopeful that we have a locker room full of guys doing the same thing. But I certainly know that like I said, I've tried to build this into something that we can be proud of, as something that can be a championship level every year. And when you fall short of that, you gotta take responsibility for it.
Go next to Sarah Lesky for TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, Tyler, and hi, Blake. I don't know if you mentioned this literally as it comes out, but when you said it feels like you're back at square, or it feels like you guys are back at square one right now. So does this end of this season feel different than in some of the past ones, maybe where you haven't achieved the success that you want to, or is that just taking that comment maybe a little bit too literally?
Well, there's similarities. It's been a while now since we've been in this spot, but it feels different in the sense that before it felt we hadn't really had the success yet, so we didn't really expect it per se, but it felt like we were building something. A lot of young players, a lot of guys, that we really believed in, that were going to get us to that next level, and that obviously came to fruition. Now it just kind of feels like searching for answers, not really sure what happened, and we have more established players and some key spots that you would have thought we'd have more success. So there's similarities and some differences, I would say.
All right, so there's a little bit more from Captain Blake Wheeler. Again, if you want to re-listen to the entire media scrum, it is up, I believe, on the Jets site and at NHL.com. But listen, it was. I think it was honest to a point. I mean, as he said, he wasn't going to break down everything right now in a public forum, and I think that's probably smart for someone that carries the weight that he has in the organization. But it was also clear that he holds a lot of it on himself. The one thing that I'll say, and again, I'm going to couch this because I have a feeling that he was speaking as a captain, as a guy that was the first one out, that has the C, that bears the majority of the responsibility. But he did talk about trying to build a culture from an I thing. And I mean, honestly, the good teams, I mean, it's not about one guy that establishes it and everybody else follows. It's about the team coming together. And it's very clear, in my opinion, Remis, from what we've heard from particularly Kyle Connor as well as Paul Stastny over the course of the last little while, that the entire culture, if you will, is not really all. Listen, it is not a full team culture right now. And maybe that's because, you've got very established veterans, some newer guys that are more veteran players and then younger players. But it seems like there's a bunch of different levels on this club. And I can just say this from my personal viewpoint, it sure would be great if you were able to get a guy to come in along with the likes of Blake Wheeler and Ehlers and the guys that, will be Winnipeg Jets next season, and build something that is not about one or two guys establishing the culture for everybody else, but getting buy-in from everyone and really developing something that helps this group of talented players become a very, very good team.
We'll have to wait and see what happens going forward. I think the comments that I took out as well, just over the last couple of weeks, I mean, you go to Andrew Kopp's comment about, and you talked about it yesterday with Murat, about getting the lawn chairs out on the penalty kill. And Dubois, I mentioned yesterday, Dubois talked about, just like how they let teams sit on the outside and they're defending, and by the time they get the puck, they're too tired. I wonder if there is some disconnect as well between how the players want to play and how the coaching staff wants them to play. And I think, you've kind of seen that just by how they haven't been able to we don't know what their identity is. They haven't had a consistent game. They can't play a full 60 minutes, all these slow starts repeatily.
As a team, they haven't looked like they've been on the same page at almost any point this season, outside of maybe the first 15 games with a pretty nice start.
Yeah, I mean, you could go over a lot of different things here. So it seems like there are a number of issues that have to get sorted out, but there are, some top players there like Kyle Connor and Nick Ehlers that you could build around, but I think they need some help for scoring. We've seen that, but also, the team defense next year has to improve as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Well, listen, we'll pick this up with Rewucki coming up a little later on. And the Gus Bus, David Gustafsson, will also be joining us in about 20 minutes. But I'm looking forward to this next segment with our good friend Andrew Collier. Baseball fans, we got some very good news for you. Just before we do that, I want to give a big thank you to our newest sponsor, Wallace & Wallace, Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialist. Folks, you've seen their trucks all over the city. They've been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call at 452-2700. Vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood. They've got the right fence for you. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. A great team of experts at Wallace can come down and arrange to give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Road off of Kenniston. Our friends at Vita Health continue to be Winnipeg's go-to place for Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, all at great prices. Not to mention some delicious luncheons at the lunch options, at the Vita Market Grab and Go Deli with salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. The very popular falafel salad. And of course, you can also get ready for barbecue season with delicious lean bison steaks or chicken. Now with 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca, you can check out their brand new fully shoppable website to buy online or schedule a delivery with Instacart. myvita.ca, or check out at any of 7 Winnipeg locations for Vita Health Fresh Market. And hey, summer is just about here, folks. It's finally that time after a couple years of not getting the suit on. It's about time to get back at it. Don't be the guy that leaves his new suit until the last minute. You've got events coming up this summer and into the fall. If you want a fresh look, now's the time to come and see Andrew and the gang at F Apparel. They got their new spring and summer fabrics in stock and ready, with over 250 new fabrics in every style, pattern, or color. And of course, with wedding season coming and many weddings being planned, talk to the guys over at F Apparel. Don't waste your money renting suits for one day or one weekend. Get the gang together, 15% discount when the wedding party buys the suits from F Apparel, and they will get you and the gang all suited up. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street, and online at fepapparel.com. All right, let's talk a little baseball. We'll get back to hockey with David Gustafsson coming up in a few minutes, and Brandon Rewucki. Despite the weather outside and another special weather statement heading into the weekend, I can confirm that the Goldeyes are back, and we will be back at the ballpark sooner than you think. Let's get ready for the season and discuss some pretty exciting announcements today from the Fish with our good friend, the general manager of the Goldeyes, Andrew Collier. You can follow him on Twitter at GoldeyesGM. Cash, what's going on, man? Great to have you back on the program. Oh, I think we've got you muted. Mute? Remo, is that on our end?
Rem? He's got a lot of microphones in there. Let me just make sure he's got the right one. Hold on.
Sounds good.
I don't think he had the right one.
While we do that, the announcement made today, and you can check this out at the Goldeyes site. Support local Shaw Park to serve Manitoba-made beer exclusively in 2022. This is, an awesome move by the Goldeyes, I think. A great showcase for so many of the great beers here in the city and province. Of course, our favorites, Little Brown Jug's going to be at the ballpark as well. And looking forward to having Andrew talk about that. Andrew, let's try this now. How can you hear me and can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Beautiful. There we go. Just strike one. We made contact on the second.
That was not Remis's fault. That was 100% my fault. I do have too many I have no idea why I have so many microphones. It's ridiculous.
Well, the one we've got is working right now. And first things first, how are things over at Goldeyes HQ? It's been a long, crazy couple years. How much are you and the staff looking forward to welcoming fans back and getting the team back on the pit or the diamond next month?
We're so excited. I'd be even more excited if I could see the field right now instead of the snow. But you know what? Fingers crossed that we get more rain than snow this weekend, and it melts that snow, and we have time for it to dry before training camp starts on May 5th.
Well, we'll have plenty of time around training camp to talk about the roster, the lineup, who's pitching, talk to Rick. Let's talk about what's happened at the games. And this is a really cool, obviously we joke a lot on this program about enjoying beers, which is not a joke. It's very much true. You've seen me at the ballpark before. But I know you told me this. You were working on this through over the off season. Tell us about the decision to go all local and have exclusively Manitoba-made beer in the ballpark and what that means for fans when they're going to head down to see the Fish.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. This all kind of started in 2018 when we developed Craft Beer Corner, and we were able to bring in some craft breweries from across Manitoba. And then over the years, I just thought, you know what, there are so many great brewers in this province. Why not go 100% local? And thanks to the support of the brewers in Manitoba, we're able to do that. So this year, there will be 4 different brewers available in cans at every game. Fort Garry, Little Brown Jug, Trans-Canada Brewery, and Torque. Those will be in cans at all the bars and the beer tubs. And then 12 different brewers at Craft Beer Corner throughout the summer on a rotating basis. So if you come once a month, you're going to see different beers each time you come. And at each game, we'll have 18 different Manitoba-made beers available. So if you can't find one that you like out of those 18, then I'm not sure what to do.
Part of me thinks that this is just a big off-season scam by you to be testing all of the product all season long to make sure it's up to the quality for the very important fans of the Winnipeg Goldeyes.
R&D is very important around the Goldeyes. We want to make sure that the quality is there for our fans. So I've done many tours of the great tap rooms in the city, and all responsibly, of course, while doing that. And we think we have a great lineup here this summer.
It is exciting. Now, I have to ask you, as someone that's worked on the sponsorship side before. Listen, the big guys, if you will, have been a big part of sponsoring teams, Goldeyes as well. Was this a financial risk to do it? And how just from that side, is there a risk to doing this outside of hopefully providing Winnipeg fans with some great beer options that they can have when they go to the game?
You know what? Because of the great support of the brewers that are going to be here, there really isn't any financial risk. The only risk or for us is putting as many people in the ballpark as we can to sample as many different products as possible. So the brewers that are here are going to sell a ton of beer, and hopefully people come here and maybe try their product for the first time and then go to the tap room and try it again there, go to the liquor mart and buy some products there. So I hope it's a win-win for everyone.
Well, it's a win-win for our crew. The fact that we can get 1919s in 16-ounce cans and throw it in those nice big koozies and kick a seat. And, well, we'll get to eating in a minute. Craft Beer Corner, if people haven't been to the ballpark the last few years and aren't familiar with it, just give people a little bit of rundown and how it might be different as opposed to the last couple seasons.
Sure. So Craft Beer Corner is located down the left field line. Great seating area there. Anybody with a ticket to the game can go sit there. You can go sit there for an inning and go sit there for the whole game. Great view of the ballpark, great view of the Human Rights Museum, just a great Winnipeg view. We'll have 8 different beers on tap at each game, 4 different brewers with 2 different flavors each. And like I said, it'll be on a rotating basis. So each homestand, there will be a different 4 brewers there. So yeah, come out to lots of games and try out their product. And as you have mentioned, and we have mentioned, we have the beer bat. It will have
this
our
is
logo
my
on it when they arrive. But
this is my in-depth beer insider work on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, where we got you to sort of fill it up. The beer bat, that's going to be out at the Craft Beer Corner as well, and just fill people in. That's a big one. It's like a 26-ouncer, I believe.
26-ounce beer bat. It'll be available exclusively at Craft Beer Corner, but it'll also be available at the slushy stand. So if you have your kids with you and they want a bat as well, we can get that full of slushy for them. 26 ounces of slushy, so they'll be bouncing off the walls when they get home.
Not that they wouldn't be anyways out at the ballpark. Listen, this is awesome news. You can check out goldeyes.com for more information on everything happened as far as suds goes. What about concessions? I mean, listen, going to the game is great. One of the best part about it is going out. Yes, the Nacho helmet is here with the great new logo. Talk to us about some of the things that you're excited when it comes to when you get your feet on at Shaw Park.
Yeah, so the Nacho helmet, I've seen these at Major League ballparks in the past, and we thought, you know what, we need some new items at the ballpark. So the Nacho helmet will be available from a kiosk down the right field line. So when you come in, you can go down the right field line, grab your Nacho helmet, cruise on down to the left field line, and grab a beer bat full of suds, or on your way, grab a beer bat full of slushy. Also, the ballpark Caesar, really excited about this. It's going to have a Danny's Whole Hog pepperoni stick, a mini pierogi, pickle spear, cube of Bothwell cheese. So again, staying all local on the items going in the ballpark Caesar. It's going to be a lot of fun.
This is great. Andrew Collier is with us, getting ready for baseball season at Shaw Park. You mentioned the Nacho helmet. What about any new people in the ballpark as far as some of your partners, as far as restaurants and whatnot? Anything new we'll be able to get to eat outside of the very innovative nachos in the batting helmet?
Well, we have a Little Pizza Heaven, another local Winnipeg company here serving up their great pizza. New this year, big smoke barbecue. So if you like your brisket, your beef, your cornbread, that'll be down the left field line as well. That's brand new this year. Really excited about that. If anybody's been to their location before, knows how great their products are. So that's really exciting this year.
What's the mini donuts still obviously there?
Obviously, mini donuts, pretzels.
The Ukrainian out in the left field line near Craft Beer Corner, one of my personal favorites.
Mr. Pierogi, yeah, he's supplying the mini pierogies that are going into ballpark Caesar. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
And of course the Goldie Dog. I don't think the Goldie Dog gets enough respect on the local concession scene. Maybe it's because you have to go so far out on right field to buy it. But I will say this: it is worth it. And we've talked a lot about the Wallaby Burger and the Jet Dog. I do think we need to start giving the respect that the Goldie Dog works. Split bacon on it. I mean, it's a solid ballpark dog.
It is a fantastic dog, and you say it's down the right field line. With all the items that people are going to be eating, they're going to need to walk it off. So walk the concourse back and forth, picking up different items along the way. Lose those pounds that you're going to be gaining from all the food you're going to be eating.
All right. Well, we've talked about what we're eating and drinking at the ballpark. Tell us about how the club's coming together. I know another signing today of a catcher that was just with the club previously, a big return. I mean, how are things looking roster-wise for Rick and the boys when they get to town?
Things are good. I think we're just about done filling out the roster. I think Rick would like to add a couple more pitchers just because we have 5 preseason games. It'd be good to get as many guys into the game as possible to give Rick a good look at what he has, but I really like our lineup. It's coming together nicely, a good mix of returning guys and new guys. I think it's going to be an exciting team.
Andrew, I was actually DMing with Steve Schuster. I'm looking forward to getting on the program as well around training camp and throughout the season to give us kind of the latest on the squad. But I was asking him about some of the rules. Minor league baseball, affiliated minor league baseball has had some pretty significant rule changes this year, including the pitch clock. Do we expect anything like that happening in the American Association right now, or is it still somewhat up in the air? I mean, just from a rules standpoint, anything different this year for the Goldeyes in the league?
Nothing significantly different other than the extra inning rule. We're going to the international rule where the player will be placed on second base. But pitch clock has been talked about every year because we're always trying to speed up the games a little bit. So I think that'll be an ongoing discussion. I think our league office is currently looking at how it's working in the minor leagues right now. And from everything I've seen, it is speeding up the game and keeping it moving. So that'll be further discussed.
Well, listen, we'll have plenty of time to get ready for it. So what is camp set first week in May?
May 5th is when we start camp, and then first preseason games are the 7th and 8th, and then 10th and 11th, and then May 13th is the home opener.
Getting right to it. No big long trip through the States to start the season this year.
Not this year. No, it'll be interesting. And the commissioner will be here on May 13th. So hopefully it's nice and warm for him that day to come up and see a game.
I'll say this, dude, we're due. I mean, I don't know how much more of this garbage weather we could possibly get. And we're going to get another big storm system coming in on the weekend. So maybe we can just get it all done with and then have a perfect season of gorgeous weather for Goldeyes fans down at the park.
That would be ideal. Yeah. So let's get it out of the way this weekend and then smooth sailing after this.
Good stuff. Hey, quickly, so much excitement about the Blue Jays. Great start to the club. They won last night. One of the most fun, young, and exciting teams in all of baseball. When there's that sort of a buzz around the Jays, do you find that helps the Goldeyes as well?
I think anytime there's great baseball on TV, it gets people fired up. It's just like when the Masters is on, everybody gets jacked up to go golfing. Not that we can this year, but I think once people start seeing the game being played and it gets them fired up and gets them wanting to come and see some live baseball. But yeah, the Blue Jays are an exciting team. I haven't missed many games this year so far. I got it on here right now watching the game, but what an exciting team, and hopefully they can make a run.
You know what? And as Big Guy said, just as far as the pitch clock, speeding up the game will give us less time for the nachos and the beer bat. So we may have to rethink that. So we're fine with that going forward. Even the speeding up the extra innings. Sometimes it's harder to get those things once you're into the 10th. Andrew, where can people get the latest information or talk to one of your folks about mini packs, season tickets, group tickets, everything going on this year to get ready to get back out and see the Goldeyes play?
Everything they need to know, including the craft beer lineup, is at goldeyes.com. Mini packs, season tickets, groups, patio outings, sky suites. Everything they need to know is right there, or call 982-BASE.
Well, looking forward to having Remis and myself come down, potentially if we can work it out, actually just maybe do a show or two from there. But we'll definitely come down and do some detective work on some of the new offerings, both food and drink-wise, and we can have some fun for social media and our channel doing that as well. We'll see you very soon. All the best, and cannot wait to get out and see the Goldeyes again this year.
Thanks for having me on. Can't wait to see you down here.
By the way, Remis has been warming up his arm all season long. He's ready to do the opening pitch at some point this year.
I think he needs to win that title again, the home run title. I keep seeing that trophy, and it makes me roll my eyes every time I see it. I can't believe it.
Still undefeated. He's still undefeated. You let us know if he's got to defend the belt. But up until this point, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. He still is the man, as is shown by the trophy in the background here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew, all the best, man. We'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Goldeyes.com for all your information on the upcoming season. We'll definitely have to do a couple Winnipeg Sports Talk meetups out there as well. Really looking forward to the season. Well, hey, we talked a lot about enjoying those beer bats, whether you're having beers or not. You got to make sure you mix in water. And when you're thinking water, nobody does it better than the experts at Culligan, a family-owned local business that have been doing it as the go-to people for all things water for over 65 years. The Culligan folks have it all: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and city-wide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whether for the home, the cottage, the office, Culligan's got you covered. Hit them up at 694-5180. You can visit them at 1200 Sargent Avenue, or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. And as we mentioned, man, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery, I don't think they expected the run on winter to go as long as it has been, like many of us, but they are pivoting it into the spring and summer. First things first, if you're in the city, the good news is extended hours right now throughout the summer, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if you're getting ready and you're finishing work and you want to start, working on that fishing boat or something for the summer, you've got time to finish up, get down to Manitoba Battery before 8 p.m. each and every day. And for our friends out in the rural areas getting ready for farm season, the farm sale is on right now. They've got 30, Group 31, 1100 cranking amp batteries for $87.50, Ford and Chevy half-ton batteries for $79.50, and 900 amp top post batteries, utility batteries for just $72.50, to name a few of the great deals you can take advantage of. Phone orders are encouraged. They'll have it ready for you when you come to pick up at 1026 Logan Avenue. Save time and money with Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan Avenue, online at manitobabattery.com. And we're going to be speaking with David Gustafsson in just a sec. If you've been around Royal Sports lately, I know I think I wore that Winnipeg Whips lid I had. An incredibly cool retro 1996 purple Moose hat from the original season flying off the shelves there. And of course, getting ready for Moose playoffs. We're going to talk about that with David Gustafsson in just a second. Regardless of what team you're cheering for, whether it's the Raptors, I'm still choked about that game last night, the Blue Jays, NHL, Bomber season coming up. The greatest selection of merchandise anywhere is at Royal Sports. But as the weather gets nicer, soccer, baseball, softball, bikes, fitness, and more, not to mention the best hockey department in the city, is all there waiting for you at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And you can check them out on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and deals. All right, this is going to be lots of fun. He has been a favorite of many of you in the chat throughout the season, having another great season with the Manitoba Moose. An unfortunate couple games with the Jets, and we'll get to that because of injuries. And of course, a big leader on this club getting ready for the Calder Cup playoffs. It's a pleasure to welcome in Moose center David Gustafsson to the show. The Gus Bus is here. What's going on, David? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Listen, let's be real. The weather could be a bit better as of late. This has been a very uncharacteristically long winter. And listen, it's been a tough season for the Winnipeg Jets, but I think people that have been paying attention both to your team and the ice, really looking forward to some playoff hockey. I mean, first things first, how are you feeling right now? I mean, you were injured for a while. You got back into the lineup. You had to go onto the COVID list, back in, look good on the weekend. Where are you at right now as we get to the final stroke of the regular season and getting ready for the playoffs?
No, I'm 100% again. I mean, as you said, it's been some injury and COVID here for the last road trip, but now I'm back and so to get on the last road trip here with the boys.
You played so well, and and as I said before, I mean, I wouldn't be lying to say that there was a lot of interest in you getting some more chances and some more time with the Jets. But man, you want to talk about the definition of Murphy's Law. Was you with the call-ups this year? I mean, 2 games started and injured early. I mean, was this just the most bizarre luck you've ever had in your life?
Yeah, probably. I've never experienced anything like that before. Yeah, and it was all early in the games too, around like my second shift, both times, and just man, that hurts when that happens.
Well, it certainly does. And I can imagine, being a young player, working so hard, playing so well, knowing that, you really had earned that opportunity. I mean, to get it, 2 shifts in and then being out. I mean, that must have been like a real mental challenge for you as well as the season went on.
Oh yeah, sure. Especially second time. I mean, first time, injuries happens and stuff, but 2 times in a row, it was tough, and it was a long injury too. So it was 2 pretty tough months for me, honestly. Probably the toughest I've had in my career, like with the injury and like seeing maybe my chance of getting real good NHL games this year disappearing. So it was tough, but now I feel like I'm back and I have a great chance here before the playoffs and during the playoffs to really prove where I am right now.
You've always seemed like such a positive person when we've spoken with you before, even from getting drafted and, you're coming here and being such a big part of, last year's Moose squad. When you're rehabbing that second injury and you come back, was it difficult to stay as positive as you normally are? Or, was being the person you are, you just kind of have to accept what's happened and make the best of it?
I mean, it was for sure hard to stay positive. There was some days better than other days, but yeah, I mean, you were by the sideline and seeing your teammates playing out there, and every athlete that's struggling with that. I mean, you want to play; that's what you want to do, right? And especially when you finally get the chance to be up there, that's the time you get to show yourself. And I was, I wouldn't want to say lucky, but there was some other guys getting injured at the same time as me. So at least I wasn't by myself in the gym working out. I mean, I had other guys like CJ and was also injured at the same time as me. So we could work out together at least.
Well, bottom line is you're back on the ice and playing well. This Moose team has been... I described it when we were speaking last week, I think, to Dan Fink, as such an epitome of team. Like, there hasn't been one guy or 2 guys that have run away and sort of dominate all the scoring. And I mean, you'd have guys that sometimes will be playing on the 4th or 3rd line that the next day, due to whatever, are playing on the 1st line. It really seems like everyone has contributed. I mean, how would you characterize what the Manitoba Moose team is all about, and how many different guys have contributed on different nights to help you guys with the great record that you've got right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a great job of describing it, really, because, I mean, a lot of people talk about that they're a 4-line team and everybody can contribute, but I feel like for us, that's really what we are. I mean, if you watch our stats and watch our games, you can see that we're 4 lines pushing, and everybody, no matter who's on the ice, it's always a threat to score. And I feel like that's our biggest strength. And same with D-mans. I mean, we have 6 D-mans who can play the puck and shoot the puck and contribute offensively for us.
Well, and I mean, listen, part of it has been the weird time that we're in with, with the COVID list and also with injuries. But I imagine it was neat. And as much as, you were in a unique situation, because I think that, if we're at the beginning of the season, if we were talking about members of the Moose that would be getting opportunities, to potentially go up and stay, you would have been up the top of the list. But over the course of the season, so many of your teammates, through whatever circumstances, had a chance to get their first taste of NHL action. What was that been like, just being around the Moose and seeing so many young guys like you have in the past get that first game in and get a little bit of a taste of the best league in the world?
I mean, I feel like we're a great team, like lifting up each other when that happens. As you said, a lot of guys have been getting games up there now, and I feel like that's really good for us going into the playoffs here with guys feeling a little more confident. I mean, they've been up there, they've been playing, and they've had NHL games on their record. So I feel like that's another big strength for us, that we have almost a half a team with NHL games.
Well, I mean, it's been nice to see, and for those of us that have been out and watched a lot of Moose games, I mean, the opportunity to see guys that maybe get small opportunities at the NHL level to come and play a much bigger role, one that they hope to graduate to at some point, has been big. But as someone that was on the team last year and was the most valuable player on the club, you did have a coaching change this year. Tell us a little bit about Mark Morrison and the job that he's been, and how important maybe a different voice or how he's helped this team get the results that you guys have had and had so many great years by so many players.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good at getting the most out of us. I mean, even there was a time there where we had a lot of guys called up, a lot of guys injured, and our team was, it was barely our team anymore. I mean, half the guys were new guys, and he still managed to win. I mean, he found a way for us to play to still manage to win against the top teams in the league, and I feel like he's really good at getting the most out of all of us. And as I said, use all four lines. I mean, we're not going heavily on one line. We're good at switching it up. So when injuries and call-ups happens, we're always good. We always have another guy who steps up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like, he's leaned on every player in that roster. And you mentioned, I mean, a couple of those times early this season when so many guys were called up. I mean, as one of the leaders on the team, and I can't remember whether you were in the lineup for all those games or not, but I mean, it must have been hilarious at times. I mean, I think we were speaking with Jeff Malott on one of the days, and he said, well, I mean, honestly, you were literally getting introduced to guys on the ice during warmups because they were just arriving, getting some gear on, and then, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. I mean, I was one of the guys who was injured for most of that times, but there were some games that I met a new guy at the warm-ups, and then we go out to play together in the evening. And I gotta say too, all the guys we got during that period of time, they went in and they played good. And I feel like we've been really lucky with all our call-ups coming to the Moose, that all of them has been really good and really playing hockey up there.
David Gustafsson's with us. Couple weeks left in the regular season due to some makeup games. What's the feeling around the team right now? And I mean, what are you guys looking to do over the last couple of weeks, other than, of course, touch wood, stay healthy, and be ready to be feeling as good as possible when the puck drops in game one?
Well, now it's all about finding our playoff game, because you can't just. We've been talking a lot about you can't just go into playoffs and put the switch on. I mean, we gotta find our game right now and. Find a game that we can stay with, that we can play during playoffs, because man, it's a best of 5 series we start with, so we better be ready for that.
Playoff experience is so important, regardless of what league you're in. I mean, from an individual perspective, knowing the role that you play with the Manitoba Moose, how excited you are for the challenge of the Calder Cup playoffs, and how much do you think a nice, long, successful run for your team could help you and a number of other players continue moving forward as prospects within this organization?
Oh, it's big. I mean, this is the first time I have the chance to actually go for playoffs with the Moose. I mean, because of COVID, the last 2 seasons, we didn't have any playoffs. So this is the first time for me really to show what I can do in a playoff, and also see the playoff life over here. I mean, I played in Sweden, but of course it's different. So I'm really excited about this.
No, I think the fans are as well. And I mean, listen, it's such a busy hockey market with all the things that are going on, but I really do think that you're going to have a lot of people maybe that'll be coming out for the first time, once we get to the playoffs and seeing what we'll tell. If people haven't seen the Moose from your perspective, David, when they get out to a playoff game or at the end of the season, what will they see? How would you describe your team when people come in for the first time to the building if they haven't seen you so far?
First of all, I think they're gonna have a great time. I mean, I feel like we put up a fun hockey out there. We play really offensively and aggressively. So from what I've heard so far, the fans really like our game and have a good time when they're there. So I think they should give it a try, and I think they're going to enjoy it.
Well, I mean, you guys do seem like a real fun team, a team that has, that enjoys being together. And I have to ask you about this. I mean, we all remember Jeff Malott's famous walk-off shootout celebration. Whoever it was in the marketing department that put together that ad for tickets afterwards based on that, absolutely brilliant. But we heard about the night in Chicago where Jeff's brother was fighting in the octagon in the UFC. Tell us what it was like being, a member of the team, and what it was like you guys going, not knowing what happened, and watching that. That must have been a real cool event for you and all the guys in the room with Jeff being there.
Unfortunately, I was home with COVID during that time,
Oh,
so I
that's
couldn't
right.
be in the locker room. Yeah, I know it was bad. I saw it from my at home, so I still watch it, but from what I heard of the guys, it was just everybody right after the game, they like get crowded together, look at the TV, and they put it on, and nobody know what was going on because none of us has posted anything of the ones who saw it before. So, and then as soon as we saw his brother knock the guy out, everybody started cheering, and I think Jama was had a mix of emotions, both relief and happiness, of course, because I mean, it's got to be tough to see your brother fighting inside of an octagon because, anything can happen in there.
Yeah,
And,
that's not for the sleight of heart. Well, to be honest, I was just amazed too, because you see Jeff, he's this good-looking, well-spoken guy, Ivy League college. I mean, you're sort of thinking professional. Found out what, his brother's an ass kicker in the UFC. What's going on? But I'll tell you what. Tell us about him though, because he's a player that came last year and has really turned into one of the go-to guys. You played with him quite a bit. How have you enjoyed that, and what have you thought of his season?
I mean, I really enjoy playing with Jeff. I mean, that's why I've been doing it for 2 years now, and I feel like we have a really good connection with each other, both on the ice and off the ice. And I think that's a critical point with your line mates too, that you got to be like getting along well off the ice too. But I mean, the guy's.
Oh, you know what? I think we just lost it. I don't know what happened. Maybe there was a. Remo, I think you might just need to do the mic again. I think there was a call there. We've had this happen a couple times when someone's on a phone or something and a call comes through and it gets done. We can hear it. Remo, you got that?
Yeah, I'm trying here. I think you got a phone call and it messed up our thing.
That would be it. Hey, David, do me a favor. Just come out and just pop back in. We'll finish. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I hear it now.
Oh, perfect. Sorry about that. But yeah, no, he's been a great story, and then of course Morgan Barron coming over. I imagine he'll be a big part of the playoff run. He's getting some chances to play right now with the big club, and those two guys were fast friends from their time at Cornell. So always nice to know a guy. But this team's coming together, getting healthy, getting ready for the playoffs, and listen, just have a great final couple weeks of the season. Stay in one piece, get that playoff game ready, and cannot wait to see what you and your team can do for a Calder Cup run. It was 2009 when the Manitoba Moose went to the Calder Cup playoffs, and this city was completely behind the club. So we'll get to the first round first and see what happens, but I can tell you that the hockey fans here are really looking forward to what your team can do, and hopefully getting a bunch of butts in the seats to see what you guys can do come Calder Cup playoff time.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I hope we can put up a good playoff run here, and I hope we get the fans with us. It would be a nice way to get into the spring here.
Good stuff, David. Well, listen, all the best to you. Thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll look forward to hopefully many chats in the future about your hockey career here in Winnipeg on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Good luck to you and the Moose the rest of the way.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Good stuff. The Gus Bus on Winnipeg Sports Talk. David Gustafsson. Yes, one of your favorites. Cannot wait for Moose playoffs. And yes, like many, probably would like to see a little more Gus Bus with the National Hockey League club. But I certainly think another great season in the American Hockey League. This young man is ready to go for next season. And in the meantime, we'll see what he and his teammates can do chasing a Calder Cup, getting going in a couple weeks. All right, Brandon Rewucki is going to join us in a few minutes on the program. Well, as I said, the Moose, not ready to golf. The Ice, not ready to golf. Jets, unfortunately, will be hitting tee times pretty much as soon as Breezy Bend opens, as well as the other courses around here. And our friends at Breezy Bend are ready for the season. Actually, I'll do a little Breezy Bend golf report for you. Check out what's happening at the Zurich afterwards. But if you are thinking about a great long-term golfing home for you and your family, I don't know if there's a better spot in this city than Breezy Bend. A beautiful course, continued improvements on the 18, as well as in the clubhouse, on the patio, amazing facilities for members, the practice area, and of course, great junior and women's programs as well. If you're thinking about making a new home for your family for the golf season, talk to Corey Johnson. Waiting list right now at Breezy Bend, but you're going to want to get on that. And certainly if you're ever thinking about a great spot for a wedding or gathering, breezybend.ca for more information on booking as well. Our friends at Not Auto Corp, I know Trevor, like myself, absolutely devastated at the Raptors loss last night. We'll talk about that as well as we come forward. I think he's heading out for game 4. But we've had a lot of talk lately around here about electric vehicles. And if you want to know more about what Teslas are like to drive, own, and live in, the Tesla experience over at Not Autocorp is what you're going to need to do. Find out more about what an electric vehicle is like, benefits as well as, how it's different from a traditional car. Talk to the experts at Not about the Tesla experience. And regardless of what type of vehicle you're looking for, why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? Pop on down and see them at Waverly and McGilvery, or you can find out more online at not.ca. And as we heard from Andrew Collier, all local beer at the ballpark this year, including our go-to, the flagship Little Brown Jug 1919. Little Brown Jug is going to be available in cans at every single game throughout the year, as well as Craft Beer Corner. And of course, if you're not at the ballpark just yet, we're going to need to wait a little bit. You can pick up Little Brown Jug in time for the weekend at your favorite beer store. Fine restaurants throughout the city will get you 1919. And of course, you can always pop down and see them on William Avenue at the restaurant and tap room. And you can also order online at littlebrownjug.ca. Citywide deliveries Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. All right, Brandon Rewucki's going to join us in less than 10 minutes. Let's get Michael Remis back in here. And Remo, fun little chat with the Gus Bus. Got to tell you, he's I just see a couple of people just mentioning David's vibe. He's always seemed like such a pleasant young man to talk to, and but was pretty honest about how difficult this season has been. I mean, he has been the walking incarnation of Murphy's Law, in that the minute he gets called up, he got hurt. And this is not a guy that's been hurt consistently throughout his career. Sort of 2 fluke injuries, including the second one that took him out for a good amount of time. Like 5 minutes in to playing with the Winnipeg Jets. It's got to be tough anytime, but especially when you're young with this opportunity trying to crack the lineup.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you finally get in, and then you get hurt, and then you get back in, and then you're hurt again. I think the mental aspect of injuries, maybe it's something that we don't exactly know what they're going through, but I think it was nice to hear that he had some company in there with CJ Cease. I mean, not nice, for them, but it's going to happen. So he seems to have battled back. He seems still in positive spirits, looking forward to the playoffs. Interestingly enough, they haven't even had playoffs last 2 years because of the shortened season in 2020 and just the way the schedule was last year. If you look at Gustafsson, I mean, he had an MVP last year, 19 points in 22 games. This year he's at 28 and 45. I see a lot of people in chat getting fired up for Moose playoffs. And I see a lot of people saying, hey, you know what? I actually want to go see this, because I remember going to Moose playoff games in the Calder Cup season 2009. I remember in their last year as well, you going to games. So it sounds like it would be a good atmosphere. And look, if we can't have the Jets playoffs, as you said, Moose and Ice both in, and I'd go see the next, how they have for the next Winnipeg Jets, or even the current Moose, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of games, especially over the last sort of month and a half. I've been trying to get to most of them, and I mean, it is a really fun team. And to see guys like Johnny Kovacevic and Declan Chisholm and David Gustafsson and Jeff Malott play the way they are. I mean, part of it is looking from a lens of someone expecting, okay, what can these guys do in the National Hockey League? And that will always be part of, being on an AHL team in the same city as the big club. But, when you just sort of remove the NHL aspect and go there and talk about the team on the ice, the way that they play and what they've been able to achieve this year, it is a great team. Mark Morrison's done an amazing job with the club. And I mean, and like David said, and like I said, I didn't really want to get into it because I didn't want to put him in a bad situation, but I couldn't help think, Reem, the way he described what the Moose is, which is a legitimate four-line team where everybody's playing, everybody's getting minutes, everybody's contributing, and how different that must have been when he or any of these other young players are called up and play on the fourth line with the Winnipeg Jets and get 4 or 5 or 6 minutes of ice time a night. I mean, it's a very, very different thing. I mean, I think it sort of speaks to what they've thought about the depth, maybe the urgency to score and get more out of the top 6 this year. But when you watch the Moose and the way the lines are rolled and the way the team plays, it won't remind you of the way that ice time has been distributed here with the big club.
Yeah, maybe not the best thing. But hey, Dave must have shocked you, being on a team that rolls all four lines, going to the Jets and getting 5 minutes a night on the fourth line.
That wouldn't have been cool. It would have been unfair to David.
But
although I was thinking it.
One thing, I think a lot of people in chat, I think it was mentioned as well. He mentioned how many Moose have had time on the Jets this year. There's Jeff Malott leading the way in the points. I have it on the screen for all the podcast listeners. Poganski, Gustafsson, Kovacevic, Chisholm, Cease. Scroll down, Reichel. We also had Vesalainen in. Isemont got in. Heinola, Barron, Perfetti, Sandberg. I mean, a lot of guys. Toninato. So many, burdens with the Jets now as well. So many players on the Moose getting in with the Jets. And again, we're looking forward to Calder Cup playoff run. Hopefully a deep run. That would be nice.
Well, you know what? It really would be. And, I think the Ice are, certainly equipped to have a deep run. And again, the Ice playoffs begin coming up on Friday and Saturday at the Ice Cave. And they're going to get going a couple weeks ahead of the Moose. But I'll tell you what, as disappointing as this Jets season's been, if the Jets were in the playoffs, I think that really would have sucked all the oxygen out and probably people would have been not paying as much attention to the Moose or Ice. So for both of those organizations, this is a huge opportunity maybe to make some new fans, to show some people that haven't been paying attention the quality product that both of those teams have been putting out this year. And bottom line, go out and play some very important, meaningful, fun games and great atmospheres trying to win a championship. And both clubs will be able to do that. The Ice get going, as we mentioned, this weekend. And when we're done today, we had James Patrick, a great conversation earlier this week on the show. He's going to be jumping on with KNR at 3 p.m. So we'll get out by 3 o'clock and you can head over if you want to hear more on the upcoming Ice playoffs with Kenny and Rennie and head coach James Patrick. Hey, just before we bring Brandon Rewucki in, I did mention our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge still looking for a couple of university students that might be looking for a dream job in the summer to come out and work. From a fishing perspective, it is world class. It is the greatest 3 or 4 days of the year when you get out there. But I've always been incredibly envious of the young people that get to spend the entire summer out at Aikens Lake. I do believe they're looking for still one more fishing guide. So you'd obviously want to have some good fishing experience, but you don't need any experience to work at. Dock hands, laborers, there's always lots going on. Incredibly fun place. Talk to our friend Pitt Turan. You can find out more online at aikenslake.com or fire him a tweet at Aikens Lake on Twitter and see if it might be a great fit for you. All right, let's get Rewucki in here. Lots to get to. Well, we'll talk Jets. I also want to talk with Brandon about some of the other stories in and around the National Hockey League. But let's welcome him in for a Thursday chat. Rewucki, what's going on? How are you?
Just touching up the resume for the Aikens Lake application.
You would love it. Love it. It's probably a tough place to go with a young family. I'm not sure how your wife would feel if you just said, hey, listen, I'm going to see you probably first week in September. But who knows? Maybe she'd be all for it. I don't know how things are working.
He's very supportive. I think we'll find a happy medium here. But I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. You know what? I'm as I said, I've been at peace with the season for a long time. I have honestly, as much as the games have been whatever, I've been incredibly interested, intrigued. I could use a number of adjectives to describe my reaction to hearing some of these post-game comments from the Jets over the last little while. We'll get to Blake Wheeler's comments today because I think it's a little different being, in a pre-game situation when you've been eliminated. But I know you're paying close attention. What do you think? What Ehlers after the game on Friday, Stastny and Kyle Connor, maybe in particular, speaking about it's never too late to start building a culture on Saturday. A lot of stuff coming out of the room that, let's just be honest, we have never heard or haven't heard in a long, long time around here.
Yeah. It's funny because I was talking to Remo the other day about this, and it's like the post-game comments are really the only form of entertainment we have right now because nobody's all that invested in what's going out there on the ice and nobody wants to talk about it because it's the same game. It feels like game after game, but eye-opening, even though we all kind of know or have heard rumblings or whatever it is. like to me, hearing Ehlers speak, really enjoyed what he had to say. I think that's kind of the perfect mix of a dude that's frustrated, but he's not throwing anybody under the bus by name, yet he's trying to kind of motivate and maybe uplift and be positive about everything. Like that's about as good as you can speak when things are going as poorly as they have been. But my God, like for Kyle Connor to say essentially like we got to build some kind of a culture here. This isn't a team like the Buffalo Sabres or the Seattle Kraken or pick your team, the New Jersey Devils that are, average age of 23 years old, right? Like this is a decently old team. There's not a lot of rookies that have played the entire season with this team. So just to hear somebody of his stature say something like that, I don't know how you can't be alarmed by something like that, because it speaks to a major disconnect and maybe even a major fracture inside that locker room.
Well, and who's saying it is important too. I mean, this is the guy that's having a career year, that scored 43 goals, that's leading the league, leading the team with 85 points, and will in all likelihood be the MVP of the club. And you're hearing that from him. I mean, this isn't a guy that that gets in. I mean, a Nate Bolio type, although obviously no longer with the club. I mean, a bit player. I mean, these were some of the most important players on the club. And I mean, Paul Stastny, I've said for a long time, is sort of, I think, the conscience of the Winnipeg Jets. And, he's had an amazing season on the ice with 21 goals. I don't know how many people had that coming. But also, I mean, I think his presence right now, and maybe some of the things he's said recently has maybe spurred a little bit more honesty, or the truth serum, as we like to say, in some of his other teammates coming out. But, I mean, it's been stark. It's been jaw-dropping at times, but I guess in a lot of ways, what else should we expect? Listen, I'd much prefer this sort of frank honesty, and I think most fans do as well, as opposed to be honest, what we've had for a long time leading up to this, which was sort of pushing things aside, not accepting it, and accountability has been the word. We've talked so much about this club and what they really need, and we never really got a lot of that. I mean, starting with Coach Maurice. I mean, hey, and this is a philosophy. Some people say, listen, it's none of anyone else's business. Obviously, I'm going to be talking to these guys about certain things, but I'm going to go out there and sort of protect them and handle things different. And I think that's sort of trickled down to a lot of the players as well. It doesn't seem like that's the case right now with this season essentially lost.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a coincidence either that this happens as they officially fall out of the playoff picture, right? Like it was pretty silent a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, even though, it would have taken a minor miracle for them to get in. But now that reality has officially set in for the players, it's just intriguing that we're starting to hear players that we haven't normally heard speak up, start to step up and make some pretty important statements. And yeah, like I think that I don't want to say, with any sort of definitive certainty of what's going on there, but you kind of wonder if there's, I don't know if cliques is necessarily the right word, but just fractions of the dressing room that is kind of looking around and say, okay, these guys are doing things right, but these guys are the ones holding us back, and we need a lot more from pretty much everybody on the board. But as far as just simple things like effort and focus and attention to detail, we just haven't gotten that from a large group of the team this year, which is obviously extremely frustrating. The Stastny thing that I just wanted to touch on quickly, and I don't disagree with you. He probably is, to an extent, the consciousness of this team. He's a free agent this year, and I know the plan was to bring him back and everything like that. Well, is there not a decent chance that Paul Stastny looks around and says, "I'm not so sure this is the place I want to be," knowing that I probably got one more year left of chasing a Stanley Cup? If you lose the consciousness of a team that is completely falling apart at the seams here, what does that do for the mentality going into next season?
I'll say this about Paul Stastny, to your point. I think I think his bargaining power has gone up significantly over the course of the last couple months with what's happening to the club, with the season that he's had. I mean, as well as the realistic possibility that Mark Scheifele isn't a Winnipeg Jet next year. I mean, I know we've talked plenty about that over the course of the season. I still think it's more likely that he'll be traded than he isn't.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I said 60% last week, and I think that if you said it to me today, I think I'd say it's more like about 75.
So why, like, I just don't know. And so much there's so many variables in the air, right? Like if there's any management changes or anything like that, but why would it be going up and up as we move forward here? I'm curious about that.
I don't know,
because we don't see moves like this.
I think I was trying to be conservative earlier with my number, and I think I'm becoming more and more confident that what I'd been thinking for most of the season is coming to fruition, in that the team is somewhat broken. Listen, I think that there is some blame on the general manager for the way the roster's put together. I mean, there will be player moves. Coaching, we've talked about on end. I do believe that there'll be a new coach. So that should change some things, but I still don't think that you can just, get a couple new players in here on the periphery and bring a new coach in and expect that this team is going to be going head to head with Carolina and Florida and Tampa and be the Stanley Cup contender. And when it comes to Scheifele, I mean, a big part of it is the contract. I mean, we can't lose sight of that. I mean, he's going into year 7 of an 8-year deal. It's a pretty good value when it comes to what he does scoring wise for the Winnipeg Jets. So I do think there'll be a demand for that. I think that there will be, excuse me, getting choked up talking about this.
Okay.
It's been such a big part of the club for a long time. But I mean, I think that sort of a piece does two things if you make that trade. First of all, I think you can legitimately bring back some pieces that can help you get better in some other areas. I mean, you may be losing maybe on a high-end offensive side, but I think there's certainly an argument to be made that depending on the players that come in, where they're played, how they do it as in a 200-foot game, you could have a net gain in that. You might be losing a little bit here, but gaining more there. And then, going back to the entire talk about the team's culture and whatnot. I'll be straight. I've been incredibly disappointed in Mark Scheifele as a quote unquote leader. And we heard from Blake Wheeler, today. I think Josh Morrissey's been the guy that's shown the most, to be honest, frankness, honesty, leadership recently. But I think Wheeler's comments today were quite telling as well. I think he was, a little bit more guarded, a little bit more prepared. I think, emotionally he's at a place where he knows that the season is done. But I think Wheeler and Scheifele, it was so much about those two with this club for a long time. And I sort of think that in some way that needs to change. I mean, you need to sort of hand the baton off to some of these other players and have them in those roles. And the only move that I can really see that, accomplishes a number of that with the potential of not taking a huge step back, is a trade around Mark Scheifele. And then the other side of things, and this is just my perspective, I've been saying this all along from a Jets perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if he's already asked for a trade. I mean, look at him in his season this year. I mean, is there a guy in this league that needs a change of scenery more than him? I'm not sure. So to be honest, I think it might be mutually beneficial for all parties involved. But I said 60 last week on the show. I'm not going the other way, to be honest with you. I think it's more likely today than it was then.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that too, especially if there's no management changes, right? Like if somebody else comes in, maybe they have a different view and want to keep, even with his flaws, a point a game centerman.
Yeah, exactly. Want to get a crack. You know what? The old thing, make it again. Yeah, well, as I said, I think there'll be a change. I still would say, again, if we're going to be putting percentages on it, I think the percentage of moving on from Chevy, I think is still low. Some people will say it should happen regardless, but I don't think that will. And listen, those guys have been watching every single one of these games. They've got more of a pulse on the club than any of us. They're closer to it. And I think if we're all thinking this way, I think that they might be even more along down that road, realizing that something needs to change. And the other thing is, if you don't do it, then you've got a guy with 1 year left on his deal. It's going to be 31 when it's done. Are you want to make a massive investment with, you only have so many players to play that top dollar? Are you going to do that to Mark Scheifele at 31? I don't think so. So, I mean, I really do think that it adds up. I mean, it's not an easy trade to make, and there's certainly a lot of risk involved. But big changes are going to happen some way or the other. I mean, to me, that's the one that makes the most sense. I think it can change things in a number of different ways. And the bottom line is, I think the value of that player and that contract could bring back some significant capital back to the club that can hopefully get this thing going in the right direction.
Yeah. And, if Chevy is back and if a Scheifele trade eventually does happen, obviously dependent on the return to a degree, but I think I'd be okay with it, knowing that I think management looks at that and realizes, this was just a point of no return, right? Like we just couldn't move forward with this, and a coaching change wasn't going to be enough. Maybe enough as a motivational tool. I would understand that, but I think there also needs to be a bit of an understanding that the Jets are likely going to, in a vacuum, lose that trade, right? Like, I don't know if they're going to get somebody back as valuable as Mark Scheifele in that trade. Maybe the team as a whole improves just because of intangibles and different things like that, but you're probably going to lose that trade. So that's obviously the massive risk that you talked about. But I'd like to see what's out there. I'm probably going to do a deeper dive into this once the season officially wraps up, just to see the potential names and assets that could be coming back. And to your earlier point, I wouldn't be surprised if a few players on the Jets asked for trades as the season is kind of winded down here. But I have heard from someone I know that's fairly reputable that the Philadelphia Flyers might be in the mix for a Mark Scheifele. And
that's exactly that's what I want to hear right now.
Yeah.
Get the Flyers on the horn immediately, because you know where I'm going with this. You want to win a trade? Call Philly.
Okay, that's tough but fair. But and I brought this up on one of my episodes of Skates and Plates. But coincidentally, Ivan Provorov is another player that apparently might need a change of scenery. Coincidentally, they both make roughly the same amount of money. Maybe there's the potential for the basis of it. I don't know what gets thrown in and all that sort of stuff, but I would just keep that in mind if I was a Jets fan. If you're looking at where we could potentially see a big move to be made and who could be involved, just keep that one in the back pocket, because we all know GMs love to use the excuse, it's a hard cap world, dollar in, dollar out. Well, potential number one defenseman, potential number one center, making the same money. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I've always said that if I was making that deal, I'd want to do whatever I could to get someone that could play in the middle and maybe not score at the level of Scheifele, but that you could put in. Like, if Cole Perfetti was obviously ready to play center in the top 6 right now for the National Hockey League, I think I'd probably be more along that lines. Or if the Winnipeg Jets had some more, like, if you look at the Moose right now, Brandon, and it's sort of ironic that, what happened last summer with adding 2 veteran defensemen with term at a total of $10 million is that it was supposed to make this team ready to compete right now. Well, that didn't happen, and it also ended up being a roadblock for a number of talented young players to get onto the blue line. So while in theory something like that does make sense, I mean, you'd want a good young player that's either signed or with the ability to sign long term, if you're coming back and trading such an important piece like Scheif. But at the same time, right now for Winnipeg, adding to the blue line, if anything, they need to subtract from the blue line, be able to move some of that cap distribution to the forward group and hopefully get a little bit more. Because one of the most puzzling things about this Winnipeg Jets team this year has been the issues they've had scoring goals so many nights. I mean, we know the talent's there. And I mean, it's a head scratcher because you look at the season that Connor's had and you look at the season that Ehlers has had, and even Scheifele and Wheeler are right around a point a game. And then you look at, what they've done compared to what they've created has not added up. And I mean, there's like 35 games where they scored 2 goals or less, and they've won 3 of those games over the entire season. So, it is quite a predicament for a general manager to try to make that happen. And listen, we can talk about it all we want. It's not easy to do it right, and to make it work. Yeah. And there's not a lot of teams that want to give up, young, cost-effective centermen, even for a guy like Mark Scheifele, right? So it's, I don't know. I don't know the fit yet. And it might be one of those surprise teams that kind of comes out of nowhere. A similar way that Vegas seemed to come out of nowhere in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes and find a way to make it work. And then there's that side of it too. Like, do you make a trade with futures involved? And do you try to flip those, or do the Jets go into a rebuild? If you trade Scheifele for futures, does Connor Hellebuck look at you and say, hey, I got 2 years left too. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to play, 79 more games for a team that might sneak into the playoff, right? Like, there's a lot of potential dominoes that could fall just based off of moving one big piece like that. So it'll be very fascinating to see what happens. I think the one bit of certainty we all have is that there's going to be at least one monster move, right? Like, I can't imagine, even if Scheifele stays, for example, that the Jets don't make a significant move at some point in their lineup to alter the makeup and the composition of this team at the very least, because you can't just, hope for the Calgary best case scenario. A new coach comes in and this team finds a way to make it happen. I think for me, that ship has sailed. This group of players has shown that, they don't really deserve the benefit of the doubt, maybe the same way that the Flames did.
Well, here's a great question. Although, you know what, to be honest, dude, I mean, as I was on Sportsnet all last summer with Steinberg having this same conversation, and I mean, there wasn't a lot of people the amount of fans that would call into the show, that would reach out to us saying, hey, you know what, this is a little, I know this was an incredibly disappointing season and they just managed to miss the playoffs in the freaking Canadian division. There wasn't a lot of people saying, you know what, just give Sutter another year and we'll see what happens and we're going to get. No one was saying that at all. But listen, back to the Jets, to your point, and I firmly agree. I mean, there will be a significant core changing move. If it's not Mark Scheifele, who is it? Because, some people will say Blake Wheeler. I mean, easier said than done. First of all, there's the contract, there's the age, there's the no move deal. I mean, all of that. The bottom line is if you're making some sort of a deal like that, I think you're losing more from a guy, regardless of, being the captain and all that things. And we talked about the core. He certainly is the core, the leader of the core. But listen, you're not getting anything back in that deal, even if you're able to make it close to Mark Scheifele. And if it's not Mark Scheifele, you're going to trade Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, to me, that's a complete non-starter. And once you get past that group, I don't think there's any impactful move that we'd really be talking about.
Yeah, there's 31 teams out there that are like, yeah, you trade Nikolai Ehlers. That's what you do. That's been the problem all along. It's the Danes' fault. When you frame it that way, there really is only one guy, isn't it? And I guess if it isn't going to be Scheifele, you would have to say Wheeler, right? Because Josh Morrissey is the only other guy that I think you would look at as a part of the leadership group over the past few years, and he's at his best season in season, right? He's been tremendous this season, and there's really no benefit, in my opinion, to moving a guy like that out of the way. He seems to be pretty integral, and I don't think the Jets have any interest whatsoever in moving him. So.
Well, and listening to Wheeler today speak, and I'm not sure whether you caught all of it. I know you had a busy day earlier on. But, he was sort of putting it on, on himself, as a leader, as the captain, I mean, I've tried to create a culture, and that, to me, this culture next year is going to be about the team, not as much coming from Paul Maurice or the captain of the team and letting people know what it is. I mean, I think they really have to build something as a group. And listen, Scheifele and Wheeler have been the guys for a long time, and I know Josh Morrissey's had an A, and he's stepped up big time and said many of the things that have needed to be said. And certainly over the last couple of weeks, it was almost like he was the team spokesman. I think he's earned a lot of respect from people within the team, the organization. Not that he could maybe get much more considering what he'd been through. So, I mean, I think that's a complete non-starter when it comes to him. But the whole thing with a possible Wheeler deal, as I said, there's the no move. There's a bunch of things that would prevent it from happening if he didn't want to. And even if he did, I mean, finding a taker for that deal, what are you getting back? I mean, you're probably eating some of the salary. I mean, I don't know that really changes much in here. However, Mark Scheifele, with the spot that he has taken with this club as the number one center, getting the most ice time, the go-to guy for everything, if all of a sudden he's out, regardless of what pieces that are coming in that you hope will help, him leaving immediately elevates Dubois, Connor, Nikolai Ehlers to roles where not only are they, near the top of the lineup, but I think sort of expected to be, accountable for such as well. And I think there's a psychological side to a deal like that, I think uplifts maybe some other players, puts them in positions where I think they're ready for. And I think that can also help the team be a better team overall next season.
Yeah, that's the Minnesota side of things that we've talked about before, where it's addition by subtraction in a sense, and maybe it's not a coincidence either that we've heard Ehlers and Connor speak up with Mark Scheifele not in the lineup because of injury. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there's no doubt, and there's no other way, especially with a fan base that has been so loyal to True North, right? They've. If you look, and I get it's not maybe as simple as comparing them to every other franchise in the NHL, but been here for just over 10 years now, and really only one playoff run of any significance, right? Like and for the fan base to be packing the stands pretty much damn near every night, I wonder too how much Jets fans would buy the same group of players coming back next year. And
listen, that's a huge part of it. And to be honest, they might love Dave Lowry and think that Dave Lowry is the coach that actually could be that guy. And listen, I guess, if you're willing to take the losses or whatever, you could run that back. But I mean, it just comes back to this season being so disappointing. I don't know how they possibly sell that in a year where for the first time in a long time, they actually do have to do some selling, as we've seen with the commercials, people trying to, hey folks, if you haven't had season tickets before, get on board. I mean, they have a need to do that. It's not just automatic, open the door and see 15,000 in the building. And I don't think there's any doubt that fact, that's not an opinion. That is a fact right now that they have to do a lot of work. Might force them maybe to be a little bit more aggressive on some of these changes than maybe they've done in the past.
Yeah. And I really think on top of it all, maybe an underrated storyline going into all this is the fact that, you mentioned Scheifele 2 years left on the deal. You got to make a move at some point and decide the future of the team. But I mean, the same in a different sense is finding a way to make Connor Hellebuck happy too in this, right? Like if we know how insanely competitive he is, and I just don't think he's going to sign up for 70 plus games next season and winning 50% of them. You know what I mean? Like he wants to be in an environment where he's competitive and winning a ton of games and potentially carrying a team to a deep playoff run. And obviously they're nowhere near that this season. So I think that's something that needs to be on the minds of management as well, is like, man, we got a Vezina goalie here. We got him on a sweetheart deal for 2 more seasons. If we're not taking advantage of this, then, hey, it might be a difficult move to sell, but we might have to think about potentially moving on from that. You know what I mean? Like there's a number of different avenues this offseason could go. And it could be win now. It could be rebuild. It could be right. Like it's very intriguing how it's almost this choose your own adventure story that Jets management is going to have to navigate. But damn, there's a lot of dominoes that are going to fall based off of one big move and then a couple big moves. And we've even talked about, a coaching staff, like what a new coaching staff would look like and who some of the names would be and how that could influence who potentially comes in for personnel next year too.
Well, it's a great question. And that's something it's easy to look at guys that have connections to the organization that have been coaches before. I mean, certainly Alain Vigneault is a former Moose coach. We've heard the name Pascal Vincent. Scott Arniel's an interesting guy in that, I often think back to, Bill Belichick, and I'm not comparing Arnie to Bill Belichick. Please don't, before you go crazy in the chat. But, he got his opportunity as a head coach very young for, an expansion team. Well, no, they were an expansion team, but for a very bad team at the time, it didn't go well. And I think I remember talking to him afterwards, and he said something to the extent of, when you go in and you think that you're starting off and you think that you have the answers, and once you're done, you realize when you started, you didn't even know the questions, never mind the answers. So, to have that experience and then to work for a number of very successful coaches like Peter Laviolette right now in Washington, that might be a guy that, that has the connections. But I'm all for, if they're really going to say, okay, listen, we are going to bring in a new staff. I think you have a wide net. And the reason why we hear those names is they're just logical choices of people that have connections. And that's often how the hockey world works. But I would say, considering the task at hand for the organization to try to make a big step forward and move on from a lot of things that have maybe been building over a few years, maybe thinking outside of the box a little bit and at least considering some people that wouldn't be, on the tips of everyone's tongue in the chat might be wise for the team to do.
Yeah, because, in theory, if you're an organization, you're only doing this process, once every 10 years, right? So do whatever it takes, talk to as many people as possible and get it right one time. And you don't have to worry about doing it 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I'll tell you what my checklist is for the next head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. Do you have ties to True North and the Winnipeg Jets, either 1.0 or 2.0? If the answer is no, You're on the list. You got a chance of getting that. That's really it. Like, and giving them the freedom to pick their own coaching staff. I think that's the main thing. I think it's foolhardy for anybody to look at any potential coaching candidate and kind of, give them an axe based on where they worked with previously. Just because if you look at the top coaches in the NHL right now, when they were first hired, none of them, as far as I remember, were considered these had-miss slam dunk candidates, right? Like John Cooper was a freaking lawyer who was coaching in the AHL. Who would have thought that he'd be arguably the best coach in the NHL? You have
anybody remember Jared Bednar's first year in the NHL?
They thought he was one and done.
That was a historically bad team. I mean, one of the worst teams that we have seen in the overtime shootout point era. And I got to give Joe Sakic a ton of credit for sticking with him after that miserable season. And the fact that he's there now still on the bench as this team is the Stanley Cup favorite, maybe does speak to giving a little bit more chance of a rope or remembering why you hired a guy despite the fact of everything had around. I mean, certainly there was a lot more wrong with that Colorado Avalanche team in that first season than what was happening on the bench, but it looked like a complete disaster. And that is tough to sell going back the next year to a fan base.
Yeah, and you have, Bruce Cassidy was kind of a surprise hire in Boston when he flamed out pretty spectacularly in Washington. I mean, even Craig Berube was St. Louis, right? Like Berube was awful in Philly, which apparently is more of a Philly thing than a Craig, right? But like it's so tough to figure out which coach is a good fit and which one just maybe isn't a great head coach with the way today's NHL is. It's so hard to really handicap that. So I'm not even necessarily going to throw in a name out there. It's just there just needs to be some major fresh blood brought in at a totally new vantage point. Like that's the main thing to me. Although I will say if Bruce Boudreau is available, find a way to make him the head coaching hire, because 100-point season is basically the floor when you're talking about a Bruce Boudreau coach team. So I got no problem with Brucey coming in.
Well, it's funny you bring up Boudreau right now, because of course we'd heard the rumors that, Maurice has a long relationship with Jim Rutherford, and, there was the potential that Maurice would be that guy. And I don't know whether the current Canucks want to have anything to do with that right now, because you're showing what they're doing. And I know they lost in a shootout or overtime or whatever to Ottawa, and they're 6-0-1 in their last 7. But when you look at where the Canucks and Jets were 2-3 weeks ago, and look at what's happened to the Jets compared to the fight that the Canucks are showing night in and night out, it just goes to show you how far things have fallen here. And it's not from a talent perspective at all. I'll put the Jets up against the Canucks all day, every day when it comes to the pieces. But credit where credit is due. Bruce Boudreau is doing a hell of a job getting the most out of that team right now. And listen, even if they fall just short, I don't know how in the world you don't run it back with Bruce. And I believe they only have to commit to one more year. I think it was a year plus an option from what I read in Pierre LeBrun's column earlier today. So it's not like you're making a decision whether you're getting a new guy or you're giving him a 4 or 5 year deal. I mean, you have a bit of a cushion built in. So I kind of don't see that happening. And maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe Maurice will get back to the media and be on a panel somewhere, because I mean, I think we could all sign up for that. Hearing Maurice maybe speak, honestly, without having any skin in the game with any teams. We would all be the beneficiaries of that, because I do miss listening to him talk. However, bottom line is what's happened with this team hasn't changed. I don't think there's any way that they can run back with Dave Lowry and say, fans, this is going to be different this year. We're going to be the Calgary Flames of next season. There will definitely be a show me element to the fan base if that is the case. But as I said, I think this is going to be the most tumultuous, might not be. It'll certainly be the most interesting, and I think it'll be the most significant offseason we've seen in a long time, because as you mentioned, Brandon, you've got 2 more years of Wheeler, 2 more years of Hellebuck, 3 more years of Ehlers, 4 more years of Kyle Connor, and potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, an extension to keep Pierre-Luc Dubois here long term. I mean, those are sort of your guys you're hoping to add to that. And this just circling back to Mark Scheifele. I mean, if this organization doesn't think that they are going to be in the Mark Scheifele business long term, I mean, to me, it's not waiting another season. I mean, it's now to do it, because both people, what the return does, what his absence from the club will do for other players being able to fill sort of that role, get more opportunities when it comes to ice time, all those things. And again, bring back some significant return, because as I said, 2 years left is a lot different than 1 year left on an expiring contract.
Yeah, and I think going into this season, it looked like, all the stars were aligning for Chevy looking at this team as if they're in a 2-year window, right? Like we have essentially the end of Scheifele, Hellebuck, Wheeler's contracts. This is going to be our contention. We're going to, semi-push all our chips in here, and that's what we saw with the Dylan and Schmidt trades. And I'll be really interested to see if there's a double down on that, or maybe a back off, or even a retool of that plan, because it's pretty insane that not even 12 months into that plan, they're going to have to do a complete redo of it, right? Like I wonder.
It just speaks to, frankly, what a disaster this season was.
Yep, exactly.
It's one thing if you had a team, like if the 2011-2012 Jets came up and put up 88 points, we'd be sitting there, this is great. This team's going in the right direction. But it's not 10 years ago. I mean, we've been going through this. We've seen the team grow. We know how good many of the players are. And when you see what the finished product and the bottom line is the results of this team, it's very hard to make any other argument that some significant changes need to be made. And I really don't think that there's a lot of press back anymore. I think the organization is fully realized that. And what's going on now is the audit of, okay, what makes the most sense to go forward and what changes we can make will help us the most within that window, as you mentioned, because we're not talking about 5 and 6 years because of the way this roster is composed right now with some of the key players and what they have remaining on their deals.
Yeah. And, on top of it too, I know Connor and Ehlers and Dubois are young-ish, but they're not that young, right? Like, there's the new, I guess, bit of information that forwards generally peak around like 23, 24, 25, right? And that's, Nick Ehlers has already passed that, I think, right? And Kyle Connor, this might be the best Kyle Connor we ever see. Next year he could be a 50-50 guy, but there's a chance too that, not that he regresses or anything, but that there's maybe a bit of a plateau in his game, right? So there is still a bit of urgency, I think, too, even with, hopeful improvement from guys like Ehlers, Dubois, and Connor, but you have to also look into it and say, yeah, we got to figure this thing out pretty quickly here, because if we want to contend with these guys, now's the time to find a way to do it. So I'm just fascinated to see what happens here, because for me, this has been the worst season in Jets 2.0 history. It's not the worst team, but it's been the worst season. And honestly, the most fun I've had watching the Jets play in the last 2 months was Wednesday night's game against the Rangers, because my Shaw went out and I didn't have to watch the game. I could just follow it on Twitter. That was the most fun I've had watching a game in a few months. So I think everyone's just in burnout mode, right? Like, it's just, let's get through these final few games. We'll get an absolutely, I think, insanely revealing postseason press conference exit meetings with the general manager and some of the players as well. And then it's going to be a wild ride for those first few weeks once the Stanley Cup is awarded.
I laugh when I think about you all the time, because we're looking at this Jets team and, the record itself it's mediocre. It's not, we'll put it this way, it's not 23, 43, and 11. And I think why I've picked out those numbers. This Philly season, you want to talk about how things have gone bad for the Winnipeg Jets. Listen, I don't follow it daily like you do, but that, like, when we talk about seasons that are a disaster, there's that, and then there's what happened to the Flyers this year. And I'd never like to say people have just completely quit. But seeing them give up a 9 spot the other day, the players that are out, we think about the things that are miserable around this team right now here in Winnipeg. That season in Philly is an all-timer, Brandon. And, the Jets aren't the only one that have major work to do in the offseason.
Yeah, it could always be worse. It could always be orange and black instead of what's gone on in Winnipeg this year. Yeah, I've kind of forgot already that, the Flyers ended Keith Yandel's Ironman streak, and that's not even going to be in the bottom 10 lowlights of the season, right? Like, that's just like kind of a pass. Yeah, whatever. We ruined his streak. That's not a big deal. There's just been so much other garbage, and it's not ending anytime soon. And honestly, the most terrifying part, I think, is that management seems to be deluded enough to think that, hey, we just retool this thing, we'll be right back in it next season. And that's always the scariest part. I think I've at least come to the slow realization that the Flyers have officially become the laughingstock of the NHL. I just don't think anyone comes close, because there's bad teams, but at least a lot of the bad teams know they're bad. It's the worst when you're a bad team that thinks you're good. And it's just going to be unless some kind of miracle happens that I have no idea. It's going to be a long off season, and I think it's going to be a long next season too. I'm not extremely hopeful that the Flyers can turn this thing around. And the craziest part is they had decent goaltending this year. Right? It's one thing if hey, you know what, we couldn't get a stop for the 50th year in a row, but Carter Hart for 4 or 5 months was giving them solid goaltending, and that was only good enough to put them at 30th in the NHL.
Hey, listen, just quickly before we go, moving away from the teams that won't be participating in the playoffs. Yes, it's really good for all of us. Looking ahead to the playoffs, I mean, is there a potential first round series that's sort of standing out to you that you're particularly excited for? I mean, to me, there is a whole bunch. I mean, the Minnesota Blues series, I think, is going to be unbelievable. And however things finish up in that Atlantic, I mean, if the Leafs are playing the Lightning, the Leafs are playing the Boston Bruins, the Panthers playing one of those teams, although it could very well be, I mean, probably either Pittsburgh or Washington there. I mean, the first round this season, at least it's shaping up to be as good as I can remember, of just incredible matchups where you can make a compelling case for either team to make it through. And there's a bunch of those teams that'll lose in the first round that you could actually see winning the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, so to answer your question, there's only one right answer, and it's Maple Leafs versus whoever. It doesn't even matter who it is, right? Like Boston, the rivalry, and the fact that they'll choke against the Bruins again. The Lightning, which I actually think is a decent, like, matchup-wise and stylistically, I think that might be the Leafs' best chance of slaying their first-round curse. But unfortunately, it's going up against the back-to-back champions, and then maybe even the Florida Panthers too, if it plays out that way. And the Panthers are putting up touchdowns. They're like a low-scoring CFL team right now. Like they're putting up 5, 6, 7 goals a night, it seems. It's got to be whoever the Leafs play, because just the narrative and the amount of pressure that is going out there in Toronto. And that's the fun part about this too, is that they could play extremely well. Like they could have like an A- series, for example, and everything. Matthews scores 5 goals in 7 games. Marner has 10 points in 7 games, and they could lose. And then it's right back to their chokers all over again, just because the Atlantic is an absolute bloodbath this season. So it's 100% whoever the Leafs play. But the Wild Blues series, if you're into UFC and stuff like that, and you're all about the physical, like that's a back alley brawl. Like that's going to be a fun. I'm looking forward to watching that one. And I think my bold playoff prediction right now is going to be that if Minnesota takes down St. Louis, that they take down Colorado. I think. Wow. There's this weird history in the NHL where when teams have as good of a season as the Avs are, for some reason they find a way to flame out in the first 2 rounds. I don't know why that is, but we saw with Tampa Bay a few seasons ago, Minnesota pushed them to 7 games right, and the Wild weren't as good then as they are now. I don't think as good as, even though for me Colorado is head and shoulders the best team in the NHL, I don't think I'm going to pick them to come out of the West this year.
Well, it's interesting. And I mean, Florida and Colorado both have 116 points right now. And I mean, you could say the same thing with the Panthers. I mean, they're going to have incredible out. And here's just finally before we go. And I'll tell you what, the Jets could do themselves a favor, the organization at least a favor tonight with a win. This totally caught me off guard. But the Rangers, with that win against the Jets, their 50th of the season, are actually tied with the Canes at the top of the Metropolitan Division. And I can tell you that if they were able to get into the 1 spot and play one of the wild card teams, it might give them home ice as well. Bottom line is, we want to see them win 2 rounds and turn that second rounder into a first. But listen, there's going to be a heck of a lot of fun stuff to do that. Listen, this is a great chat, dude. We covered a lot. And we could probably roll for another hour doing it if we want. I mean, no shortage of topics around these teams. We'll have lots of time to do it as we head into the off season. Thanks so much for doing this, and keep up the great work over on Skates and Plates. Keep on churning and cranking them out.
Thanks. I appreciate it, man. I'm going to be at the Winnipeg Jets game next week. It's like the second or third game I've seen as a fan in person since the Jets moved here.
Let me guess, that's the big game against Philly? The big game against Philly?
Huge game. Ton on the line in that one. So I picked a beauty, right? I don't go to too many, but yeah, why not watch? Let's see if the Flyers can crack the 50-point plateau this season. It's exciting stuff.
Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Great stuff. There it is, Brandon Rewucki. Make sure to check out Skates and Plates wherever you're getting your favorite podcast. We'll get Remis back in here in just a second. I'm going to be hooking up with our friends over at Canadian Club right after the show today. Of course, we've got some great Canadian Club hoodies. In fact, I think I'm wearing one right now. Little WST. This is the Winnipeg Sports Talk version of the Masters green jacket, and you can win that tomorrow in our marbles race. And of course, if you're out at your local Manitoba liquor marts, check out the amazing new ready-to-drink Canadian Club and ginger ale. Also available at beer stores around the city. And if you are in a Manitoba liquor marts, big displays at 26 of the biggest ones this month, where you get a free can of CC and ginger with any Canadian Club purchase. And make sure to check out the 1750 mLs are on sale all month long. Our friends at Princess Auto are sponsoring the Grey Cup Tour around Manitoba. And coming up this weekend, you'll have a chance in the city to see the Grey Cup at both of the Princess Auto locations. So on Saturday from 9 to 1, the Grey Cup's going to be at the 515 Panet Road store. And on Sunday, April 24th, the Grey Cup will be at the West Side store at 3292 Portage Avenue. So bring the kids out, get some pictures with the Grey Cup before the Bombers get ready to run it back. And of course, Princess Auto going to be the sponsor of the Bombers pregame tailgate coming up all season long. What do we want to say? Oh, big shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza. BostonPizza.com is where you can get all those great game day deals and order online for home delivery. If you're heading out for the game tonight, one more final road game to get together with your friends. No better place to do that than your local Boston Pizza. And heck, it looks like it's going to be another terrible weekend. Hopefully we're not going to get all this snow. Luckily, we won't be talking blizzards. The only blizzards we're talking around here is blizzards from the Nick and Nikki DQ group. 4 locations in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba: the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. For all of you burger lovers, if you haven't tried the new DQ Stack Burgers, get on it. What are you waiting for? And listen, right near the top of the game in the entire fast food industry now with the incredible improvements. I already love DQ Burgers. Couldn't believe they could get much better. Well, they did. And of course, you can grab a blizzard while you're at your local Nick and Nicky. And all 3 Winnipeg locations now available for delivery on all of the delivery apps. All right, let's get Remis back in here. Remo, man, we hit a lot with Brandon there, but I think this sort of speaks to where we're at in this season. I mean, we're obviously not talking very much about the game tonight or talking about the games next week, but I mean, so many angles to this upcoming off season. And as we've heard from the players, including the captain earlier today, pretty clear that I think everyone is expecting and hoping significant changes to avoid these same sort of conversations on this program 12 months from now.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to be doing. Hopefully this is a one-off and they can figure out how to have a competitive team next year. As Brandon said, he had more entertaining time reading Twitter than watching the game, if that's correct. I'll be watching.
The funny thing was that game was a heck of a lot better as a team performance than the games on the weekend in Florida. I mean, I had no issue with the way the Jets played. I kind of thought they showed fight. That's all I'm hoping for from these games. I mean, hey, I'm pumped that Dylan Sandberg's going to get back into the lineup, give him a little bit more experience and show what he can do, get him a little bit more comfortable at the NHL level. But other than that, like Blake Wheeler said, maintain, show that you guys have some self-respect, play for the fans that are going to be there at those games next week. And as Kyle Connor said, hopefully accept where you are right now and start working on building what this team needs to build going into next season. And don't wait for next season to do it. Start it right now, every shift for the guys that are in those lineups in Dave Lowry's 5 games before the end of the season.
Yeah, and as we said, I think the comments that we're hearing from the players have been maybe more entertaining than the games. Although, I thought the last game was solid. It reminded me of some of the games from January, but they played well, but didn't score enough goals and didn't win. So it was a disappointing result. Again, tough test tonight against Carolina, top team. Comrie's in net. Sandberg, as you said, in. I hope Sandberg gets some games. He's played pretty well. I don't think he deserved to come out, and we'll have to wait and see what happens going forward. Dave Lowry's saying that, they're not looking to audition anyone. I'm not sure what to make of that. You like to see some young guys get in the lineup, but maybe the Moose are trying to get ready to make a run here. So I guess they say one thing and then people get hurt, things change. We'll see what happens when they return. They are playing, Philly. I'll be at that Philly game too next week.
Yeah, I remember with my pal Murray, we were picking our seats at the beginning of the season, and I've got half the season upstairs, and then I've got a quarter of the season in some really nice seats lower bowl that we go together, and we were picking the games, and we made a point of getting those final 2 games, or what were supposed to be the final 2 games of the season, the Calgary game and the Philly game. We thought those could absolutely be very important games, or you're getting ready for the playoffs, and it's a real fun atmosphere. Never in a million years did I think that those would be absolute nothing games at the end of the year, but that's exactly what they are. And we've sort of known that was going to be the case for a while. That being said, one more on the road tonight. Jets taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's take a quick look at the Coolbet lines for tonight. Jets, another big underdog on the road today. No surprise. Eric Comrie getting the start. Jets plus 225 on the money line. And the Carolina Hurricanes minus 278. Florida, massive minus 588 money line. I can't remember a line that high, maybe ever. They're taking on Detroit. The Habs favored for a change. They're hosting the Philadelphia Flyers. Devils at home favorite against the Buffalo Sabres. I'll be taking Buffalo plus 115. Pittsburgh minus 118 at home against the Bruins. Big game for both of those teams jockeying for playoff position. And the Rangers look to maybe pull ahead of the Hurricanes, depending on what the Jets can do tonight. Minus 130 in New York to take on the Islanders. The Wild minus 182 against the Canucks. Must-win game for Vancouver. Leafs Lightning tonight. That could very well be a little playoff preview. That one's happening down in South Florida. Minus 128 for the Lightning. And the Dallas Stars in Calgary to take on the Flames. Vegas, big Calgary fans tonight. Dallas plus 180 on the road. Kings minus 256. They need that win against the Blackhawks, and the Blues and Sharks in the final game. Blues, big favorites. Speaking of Vegas, just before we go, Remo, I don't know if you caught that game last night. Peter DeBoer and how he's handling the goaltenders is very well. Put it this way: it shows one thing: they do not trust Robin Lehner at all. Lehner was terrible in the game against New Jersey. Had those 2 bad goals in the third period in that 3-2 loss. Let in a goal in the first period. It was 1-1. Let another one in that they challenged offside successfulully, and then they went to Logan Gordon in the second period. So essentially, Logan Thompson, excuse me. Logan Gordon's my old buddy from Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. I mean, listen, they're basically going with a guy that was in the American Hockey League at the start of the year. I mean, for all the expenditures that the Vegas Golden Knights have made, their season is essentially hanging on the shoulders of Logan Thompson. It's been a wild season in Vegas, and we've talked about disappointments in Philly and the Jets. It's not done yet for Vegas, but if they do miss the playoffs, it will be stunning. But I mean, you can't understand some of the things they've been through with all the injuries. Mark Stone's obviously not 100% right now. They haven't got the huge bump they thought they'd from with Jack Eichel, and their season right now, even with that win last night, hanging in the balance.
Yeah, I tuned in just to see Shea Theodore score the winner. There were a couple other notes from last night, Huss, we haven't touched on. Alex Ovechkin hit 50 goals. Closing in Gordie Howe. He's like, let me pull it up here. He's a couple away. Gretzky's a little over 100 away. I mean, he by the end of his career, he could be the all-time leading goal scorer. And hard to not to think about where he would be if he didn't have, I don't know, pandemic, shortened season,
lockouts,
a couple lockouts. I think being born too early or too late for his draft year. Yes, 780 career goals, 22 to pass Howe, 115, 50 this year. Still going strong. The Arizona Coyotes celebrated Andrew Ladd's 1,000th game last night. Remember him, former Jets captain? Got to give a shout out to Andrew. I know all the hoopla we had of Wheeler's 1,000th game and then Paul Stastny's. I really didn't. This was off my radar, I guess, because it's the Coyotes.
Listen, I'm happy for Andrew Ladd that he was able to get to 1,000. To be honest, I mean that contract that they signed to him in New York. Hey, listen, they signed the deal, but whether it was through injury, through regression, or what, the fact that he's toiling, as a guy taking up cap space for the worst team or one of the worst teams in the league that's going to be moving to a junior hockey rink next year. for a guy that, has won the cup and was such a big part of the Winnipeg Jets starting here. It is sort of a sad end, but to be honest, he was in the American Hockey League last year, so I guess it's better than that. Bottom line is, guy was a big part of this team for about half of his NHL career, and I know there are a lot of people that will wish him well for getting to 1,000.
For sure, first captain here. He's on the playoff squad as well. I remember watching Andrew Ladd scored. He was very good at scoring goals in tight. A lot of them were very similar. So, and Stanley Cup champion with the Blackhawks and Hurricanes, 1,000 game. I agree. A couple of years ago, he was not in the NHL, battling injuries. So that was last night. A couple things here. This has been floating around. I'll get to Mike Tyson.
Okay.
But Arizona Coyotes, lots being made of their new arena. This was posted out there. Season ticket prices for next year.
I think it was the Earl of Eli that fired this one out. Our boy Dan Milburn, and a lot of people were picking it up and doing the proverbial quote tweet on this one with a hot take.
The Bleacher Report tweeted. Greg Wyshynski has it. I don't know what to make of this. I'm still holding out hope that they have a month to decide, let's just go to Houston or
to move the team.
Quebec. Yeah.
Kansas City, nice rink. There you go. Central Division.
Yeah, KC or Houston seems like would be a great fit. I don't know how you can go to like $350 a game, the lowest 89 a game if you're getting a full season.
On season tickets, exactly.
Yeah,
full seasons.
Like, are people going to go to this 5,000 seat arena? I guess they're counting on people who don't live there, like Canadians who go and like hockey, like all winter people from US.
Well, they're not buying season tickets. I can tell you that much. I mean, the odd person that's going to be there. I mean, there are Coyote fans. And I mean, listen, some of them might be like, oh, this is going to be way better than driving out to that dump in Glendale and, the hour and a half it took to get. I mean, it'll be easier for people to get to. But I don't know how you're going to put on an NHL product in a venue like that.
How? So we'll wait and see. My fingers are crossed that they don't actually go. There's still time to go move them to Houston. It's right there. They've supported AHL in the past. They've liked
Here's
hockey,
the question.
KC.
Do they sell out next year in that building?
I mean, I would hope so. It's like 5,000 seats. I mean, if you don't, like, what are we doing here? So
Exactly.
dumb. And Greg Wyshynski posted that. He also had a big column he was getting a lot of flack for, saying the NHL should expand their playoffs. Let's fix the point system.
Yes.
And the way the playoffs are done before we even talk about that. I know the NBA has had success with play-in games. MLB is expanding playoffs. There's a lot of other issues that they need to fix before I would even entertain. I'm not even reading that column, but that was
the funny
trending.
thing is I did read it and I was going, and I always look at this. Okay, well, what about from a Jets perspective? Would this matter? Well, guess what? The Jets wouldn't even be in the play-in this year. They're 11th right now. It would be the Canucks in Vegas as of right now playing to play the winner of 7-8 to get in under the NBA at the end of NBA. And just by the way, did you watch the Raptors last night?
No, but I know that they lost and Embiid hit a game-winning shot.
Joel Embiid was such a stone cold killer last night. The Raps, to their credit, I mean, they played hard. Pascal Siakam could not sink a basket in the second half. Fred VanVleet, had a couple, but also missed quite a bit. They both just finished with 12 points. But the most ridiculous thing of the entire game, Doc Rivers running onto the court, past half court, in front of Nick Nurse to call a timeout. In the rule book, that is a straight up, clear, black and white technical foul. It was a tied game at the end of the fourth quarter. That should have been a Raptor possession and a free throw. And instead, Philly got it. Joel Embiid with the fadeaway three was absolute BS. I was beside myself last night, watched every second of the game. And it was just, I was gutted for that team that's had a great season. I think that's played above their heads, but a little bit of revenge for one of the guys that's up for the MVP. Certainly looked like an MVP. Oh, and by the way, speaking of MVP, Kevin Durant absolutely stunk last night, and the Brooklyn Nets are down 0-2. We could be talking about a round 2 of the playoffs, Remis, that has no Lakers, no Clippers, and no Brooklyn Nets after all that talk about all those super teams.
What? That would be pretty insane. All right, we'll have to wait and see. Go Suns, right? Or they lost, didn't they? You gotta be honest.
They did lose to the Pelicans. They'll probably win though. Game 3, I believe, goes tonight. Well, actually, I will tell you because we've got the Coolbet lines up here. Games tonight in the NBA: Grizzlies and Timberwolves. That one's in the Twin Cities, tied at 1. Mavs and Jazz. That one is in Utah, tied at 1. And the Warriors up 2 on the Nuggets, a slight favorite in Denver. And then tomorrow it'll be the Suns and Pelicans, Bucks, Bulls, Heat, Hawks, and Saturday afternoon, Raptors playing for their playoff lives at home Saturday afternoon, taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. All right, we do got to get out, but can we just quickly talk about this Mike Tyson incident on the plane today?
Yeah, this was on TMZ. There's a video of him on a plane. Some guy like verbally, I don't know, harassing him over and over again while he's on a flight.
In first class, by the way.
And Tyson turns around and he punched the guy a couple times in the head. He had some cuts.
He reacted as one would expect Mike Tyson to react to an idiot badgering him, bothering him, and annoying him from behind on an airline. And he deserved every single bit of it. If Will Smith can smack Chris Rock across the face at the Oscars, Mike Tyson can react this way to some jerk off bugging him repeatedly, knowing that he's doing it. Apparently the guy was drunk as well. Not really surprised. I think you'd have to be really intoxicated to try to provoke Mike Tyson. But he did, and he's getting absolutely no sympathy anywhere, as he shouldn't.
Yeah, just like yesterday, everyone was on team Al Soboka, the Red Wings Zamboni driver.
Justice for Al.
I think we're all on team Tyson here. Look, just because the guy's a celebrity doesn't mean you can harass him or let the guy enjoy his flight. And Tyson claims the guy threw a water bottle at him. This is the pictures on TMZ for listening to podcasts. We're showing them up.
The after photo where the guy's pointing to his face is absolutely classic.
Let celebrities live in peace. You don't need to verbally harass them over and over again. So if Tyson, what's
like Christopher Met says in chat, how dumb do you have to be to heckle Iron Mike Tyson? You have to have a death wish or just be completely out of your mind loaded, which this guy might be both, to be honest with you. Anyways, the videos are everywhere. You can go and check that out. Bring your hot Tyson takes tomorrow to the program. We can have some time in the chat for that. We should get going though, folks. Big thanks to all of our friends, including Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health Fresh Market, Aikens Lake, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Not Autocorp, Little Brown Jug, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, BP, Boston Pizza, Canadian Club Whiskey, and of course, Coolbet Canada. Folks, if you're with us live on YouTube, head on over to the Kenny and Rennie channel. Say what's up from us. Tell them the Winnipeg Sports Talk boys sent you. Enjoy the game tonight. And tomorrow on the program, the return of Westy. We'll get Troy's thoughts on this Jets season, maybe a little thought on what's to come for the offseason from Westy's world. Ken Weeb's going to join us as well. Talk about a really exciting golf event that's coming to Manitoba this summer. And of course, we'll drop the marbles before 3 p.m. with another chance to win a great prize from Winnipeg Sports Talk and our friends at Canadian Club. One more road game tonight, folks. Eric Comrie in, Dylan Sandberg in. Enjoy it. We'll talk about it tomorrow and get ready for the weekend here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for being with us and have a great night.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.